Hey guys, it's Brad Simons from 4PlayerNetwork.com. The following is a list of the 10 best games of 2012. You know, when I first started playing Far Cry 3, I was sure it was going to be towards the top of my best list this year, maybe even my number one. I mean, I love the way the game feels. Running and sliding around and shooting things all feels very physical and satisfying. And I also really love the driving in this game. You feel like you're barely hanging on as you're driving down, you know, a mountainside, and like if you take a turn bad or hit a rock, you'll send you flying off the edge of a cliff. And it's the kind of thing I love about games like MotorStorm and Burnout. And if they made a fucking Far Cry 3 driving game, I'd probably buy that too. I also really love the subsystems in this game. You know, I thought the skill tree was you know, had some really interesting skills to it, and I liked, you know, hunting to upgrade, you know, like my wallet, my weapons, and ammo pouches and whatnot. But what happened is I got so addicted to that stuff, and I sort of did all that stuff right away out in the open world, and I realized that, you know, as I started to, you know, climb towers and take out these camps, that there wasn't really much else to do. I mean, the fun started to fizzle out, and all I was really left with was this campaign, which I wasn't too fond of, honestly. The story was kind of dumb. There was, you know, I liked Voss a lot, but the main character and a lot of the other characters were fucking terrible. You know, I would forgive a dumb story, but the problem is the actual missions you do during the campaign are kind of bad. You know, they're very linear. You can't stray from the path much, and the checkpointing isn't very good either. You know, I had a lot of like checkpointing glitches, in fact, and honestly, I feel like if the game was paced a little bit better and more focused on the stuff out in the open world, that I would have ended up liking this game a lot more. But, you know, as I was left with, you know, just maybe a few camps to capture and a bunch of story left, I started to realize, why am I still playing the game? And I still really ended up enjoying it, but, you know, it was very much top heavy with Far Cry 3. Oh, Mark of the Ninja, you're that game I played that awesome demo of early last year at a trade show. I sang your praises to all my friends and colleagues as they said, "I don't care about you, Mark. I want to go play Dishonored." Well, you finally came out and you showed them all because you're awesome. In fact, Mark of the Ninja is probably one of the best stealth games I've ever played. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that instead of running around like a tool, frustrated and confused and fucking up, you feel like a badass. I think this is because the game gives you such good visual feedback as to what's going on. You can actually see on the screen what your player can see and can hear, but also what the enemies can see and can hear. This lets you approach any given situation with confidence, and instead of worrying about fucking up, instead you're looking at all your skills and abilities and tools and saying, oh, how am I gonna, you know, destroy the lives of these asshole guards? It's insanely satisfying. I think the game also succeeds at having like really satisfying level design. You know, there's always like 2 or 3 ways into any given room, and you can play through the entire game like differently. You know, you can go through the entire game without killing anyone, or you can run up to dudes and just fight them fucking Ninja Gaiden style if you want. You know, I played with a mix of both, but it's just really satisfying. Each level is also loaded with secrets and special puzzle challenges, which were all really good, and just alternate like goals that you can do throughout the level that give you even more rewards at the end of the level. It makes the levels infinitely replayable, I think, as you're trying to, you know, reach all these different goals. And just overall, it's just a well-made game, kind of a surprise from Klei Entertainment. And yeah, easily one of the best games I played this year. Alright, next up is The Legend of Grimrock, which is probably the best game that no one played this year. It's an indie-developed dungeon crawler that pays homage to older games like Dungeon Master and Ultima Underworld. And while there has been a fair bit of these throwbacks over the years, I think Legend of Grimrock stands among the best. I think a lot of that has to do with its attention to detail and its level design. Each floor of the dungeon is filled with, secrets that are actually like hard to figure out, yet yield satisfying rewards, and also puzzles that are actually tricky and fun to figure out. I mean, each floor of this dungeon is memorable. I mean, yeah, the graphics might have repetitive tile sets, but you will remember every inch of these floors of these dungeons because they're so well designed. The combat in the game is also really enjoyable as well. The combat is in real time, but I think that just adds to the tension because as you're attacking with your different classes and queuing up spells with your your wizard or whatever, it's really tense. You actually have to like click on the runes to cast spells as your wizard, and you'll find yourself constantly like fumbling because you're in such a hurry to cast these spells, which is it's kind of true to the lore, which is it's fun. The game is also extremely atmospheric and almost scary at times. You'd be surprised how often you'll find yourself welling away on like a snail and a fucking giant spider sneaks up behind you, and it's kind of terrifying. A lot of that is because the game is also quite challenging. I mean, if you don't have your game face on, you will die, and you will die a lot. But I think it's balanced and fair. I don't want to scare anybody away from the game because I think anybody could get through it, if they put in the time. It really was kind of a surprise to me. Also, special mention to the strangely satisfying sound effects. I don't know what it is, but when you kill something, they like burst into dust or whatever. But that sound effect is so satisfying. I will remember it forever. It's a goddamn shame that more people aren't mentioning Twisted Metal on these year-end lists. I don't know if people just didn't get around to playing it, or maybe because it came out too earlier in the year, but this is seriously the best card combat game ever made. And this is coming from someone who grew up playing Twisted Metal 2 and Twisted Metal Black. This is the best in the series. I think a lot of it has to do with the attention to detail and creativity that was put into the level designs and the vehicle designs this time around. I mean, all the vehicles have these really cool creative alternate fires. Like I played Meat Wagon, which could shoot out his gurney, which you could manually steer with the Crazy Patient on it. It was just fucking cool. Sweet Tooth could turn into a giant flying mech. That stuff, it's just rad. But the level design specifically is, I think, why I appreciate this game so much. It just got better and better throughout the course of this series, and now like so much is destructible, unlocking so many secret areas. And so many just cool like secret weapons and stuff that like every single weapon, I mean every single map is just a joy to play. There's one where it's on a rooftop and there's a giant spinning roof. It's incredible. It really is. But the bosses in the campaign are actually really well done as well. I don't know how many people actually got to the final boss, but it's crazy. There's one point where you're inside of it in a giant like pinball like fucking stage or whatever. It's absolutely insane. But I mean, I knew I was going to love this game. I just love card combat games. There's something about online multiplayer games, which, this game excels at. There's a lot of really creative modes like Nuke Mode, which is this sick twist on Capture the Flag, is perfect for card combat. But what I really love about it versus like a lot of other multiplayer games is that, there's a narrative to the combat. In Call of Duty, you sneak up on somebody, you get the shot on them, and that's it. But in Twisted Metal, you roll up on a dude, and you could be in a back and forth for like over a minute, where, you're chasing him, and then he turns around and starts chasing you. That chase and that speed is why I love Twisted Metal, and why, even in 2012, Twisted Metal can be the best of the rest and on my list of best games of the year. Come on, guys, you knew Dishonored was going to be on my list. It's like Thief meets Deus Ex meets teleporting, and it's pretty goddamn awesome. I know I've been talking about level design a lot in this video, but goddamn is the level design in Dishonored awesome. I think a lot of it has to do with, the ability to blink around. They're able to design the levels to be a lot more vertical, so you can, instead of just sort of blasting through the front gate, you can kind of sneak around, up into buildings and stuff and get through that way. I played the game kind of stealthily, but the combat is also really good to the point where if I got spotted by a guard, I would sort of quickly take him out and blink back into the shadows and start sneaking around again. You don't see that in a lot of stealth games, but I feel like Dishonored pulls that off really well. It's just, and the levels are so big and open. I don't know what it is, but I was so addicted into exploring every single nook and cranny of the area before I finally found my target and killed it. But I think my favorite part about this game is that goddamn heart. I don't know what it is. Would you squeeze it or something? But it would tell you things about the world, and it could read people's thoughts. And I would sneak around and point it at guards, and if they had fucked up minds or whatever, I would sneak up on them and kill them. And if they had pure thoughts, I would totally leave them alone. Kind of a weird way to play that game, but it was just so much fun. Dishonored wasn't really a huge surprise, for me. It was our game of the show at E3 last year, but hey, it ended up living up to expectations. It was a lot of fun.
The brand is reserved for an overseas.
So this next game didn't receive a whole lot of love this year, but that surprises me. I mean, I Am Alive is seriously one of the best survival games ever made. There's a lot of games that come out these days in the post-apocalyptic setting, but I feel like I Am Alive really captures that desperation correctly. I got excited about Fallout New Vegas's hardcore mode, but that let me down. I was surprised by just how much this game really gave me that feeling of being in the post-apocalyptic setting. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you have such limited resources and how that feeds into all the mechanics of the game. I mean, combat is something that is very tense, but it's also interesting and very puzzle-like. When you roll up on a room with 4 dudes in it, the first thing you do is you could put your hands up. You could sneak up in there, but you can also just walk up to them, put your hands up as one of them might approach you. You could take him out, pull out your gun, and actually, they don't start shooting at you immediately. You could survey the situation, find out which dude you think is probably the toughest or their leader, and take them out and actually scare the other guys into surrendering. And you could do all that with only using 1 bullet. It's super interesting. But I also like how the limited resources ties into platforming as well. There's a lot of platforming games these days, newer Tomb Raider games and Uncharted, and games like Enslaved, but there's no actual danger to climbing around. I Am Alive does it so well because a lot of your food and your water, it all ties into how much stamina you have. So you'll see things in front of you, and you'll have to debate whether you actually have enough resources to make it up the side of this building. It's just super interesting, and I feel like the game also has a really, really good atmosphere. You really sense that desperation when you're walking around in the fog, and you hear people screaming, and you don't really know where they are, and you kind of want to help them, but you can't find them. It's really smart, or you might come across somebody who's pinned down and needs help, and you might have to make a tough decision, is it worth giving him some of my resources? Really, is he even gonna make it? And just sort of move on, and hearing their screams as you sort of leave them, to die. The game's kind of incredible. It's rough around the edges, but I think it'll surprise a lot of y'all. We play a lot of fantasy-based role-playing games these days, but most of them come from Western developers. The reason I think Capcom's Dragon's Dogma succeeds so well is because it marries what's great about Western RPG design. It has a big open world that you can freely explore with the quality combat mechanics that you see in a lot of their other franchises like Devil May Cry or Monster Hunter. And instead of combat just being this thing that sort of gets you in the way between quest markers, it becomes something the highlight. It's the thing you want to do, and a lot of care is put into not just your character itself, who's fast and can move around and do a lot of cool things. I played an archer in this game, and I never play ranged units in these RPGs because it's never any fun. But there's also a lot of care put into enemy designs. You're often fighting big dragons and griffins and trolls and stuff that have complex animations and do interesting different things. And you can run up to them and climb on them and wail away on them Shadow of the Colossus style. It's kind of incredible. To give you an example, as an archer, I had this thing gravity arrow that I would shoot into the field. It would suck all these enemies in around maybe the big thing I'm fighting. I would burst into flames like Human Torch style, run and jump on the dragon I'm fighting. The dragon would burst into flames, and he would set everything else around him into flames, and I'd just be wailing away on his head. It was fucking incredible. But I also really love the scale of this game. The world is huge. The things you come across are huge. The enemies are huge. Yet instead of relying on fast travel like in a game like Skyrim, since you can move so fast and sprint so fast, it kind of becomes a joy to wander around the world. Especially at night, where you can get stuck out in the wild, not knowing what's out there. It's pretty awesome. I also really like the pawn system. It's sort of this evolution of like what Dark Souls does with leaving messages to help other players. You can loan out your pawns, and they come back having learned information about the world. And when you're playing, they'll actually, your AI companions will actually give you information like, oh, be careful up here. There's an ambush. All in all, Dragon's Dogma really surprised me. And I'm surprised more people haven't tried it. When I first started thinking about my top 10 list over a month ago, these next 3 games were the first on my list. And honestly, over the past few weeks, I've been wrestling with what order they should go in. But I'll say this, I think they stand above everything else on my list. But I had to pick, so next up is XCOM Enemy Unknown. And it's no surprise that I love this game so much. I mean, my favorite game of all time is a strategy RPG, and other strategy games are amongst my favorite games ever. But I think XCOM, what does so right is merging like the micro game with the macro game, and making every decision matter. Like even on the macro level, when you're deciding whether you're gonna research laser pistols or spend that money to make a laser pistol, or instead make a satellite, every decision matters. And because I played on Iron Man mode, those decisions even had more impact. But it goes all the way down to battles on Earth, where you're fighting an alien, and are you going to decide to take another shot or hunker down? It could change everything. And in fact, when I played this game, I was about 8 hours in, and one bad move where I moved a guy a little too much, I wasn't playing it safe. I was trying to take out this dude fast, and I lost that battle. Everybody got wiped, and then I lost the next battle, and everything spiraled out of control, probably because I didn't have enough satellites. All those decisions mattered. But what's so great about this game is it's fun when you're down in battle and you only have 2 guys left, and you're just trying to get through that fight because you can't reload, or if you're steamrolling the enemy. It's always incredibly fun, and I don't know, it was super addictive. It was probably the most addictive game I played this year. I couldn't stop taking one more turn, or doing one more battle, or researching the next thing. It was so much fun. As I'm recording this, I'm starting to realize that my top 3 games are all about making choices. Making choices when the stakes are really high. And that's no stranger to The Walking Dead. I love this game. And again, a lot of people accuse this of not being a very good game. The gameplay isn't very good, but that's bullshit. I honestly think the gameplay in this game is the part where you make choices, and the choices are tough. And it's not just because it takes place in a zombie apocalypse, but it's tough because you're making decisions within a group, and you're constantly making, you're judging people, and you're making friendships, and you're trying to make people happy but not piss people off. And the reason I think that works so well is because the people that in your group, as you're traversing this world, aren't one note. They're really deep and interesting characters. And there were some characters like Kenny where at first I was like, oh man, this is gonna be my right hand man. I can always trust him, always side with him. But then he'll do something that like I don't agree with at all, or that I find questionable, or there'll be a moment where I thought he would come help me, but he kind of hesitated, and I'm like, well, maybe fuck this guy. Or there was other characters that at first I didn't like, but then I started to trust. But then holy shit, why did you do that? And I think complex characters and your interactions with those characters are what make the decision making in this game so goddamn good. A lot of people will talk about, maybe Lee or Clementine being the best characters of the year, but I don't think that's true at all. I think it's some of these other characters, like the ones I mentioned. I mean, there was one character in this game who seemed like a weaker character, and he would always keep fucking up, but I always sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt, going, oh, he doesn't seem like a bad person. Let me keep giving him chances, thinking that he would redeem himself. Well, spoiler warning, he kind of never really does. And it just sort of made me think, well, why was I sort of taking his side this whole time? It's realistic. It's not like what you typically see in video games. And and those you know that story you know I always say a story is only as good as its characters, and holy shit, these are some of the best characters I've ever seen in a video game, and honestly, this is one of the best video games I played this decade, but it's not quite as good as my number one. Yes, we're finally here. FTL, Faster Than Light, the little space simulator indie game, is my game of the year for 2012. Some of you expected this, many of you probably have no idea what game I'm talking about, but I'll say this. Those last couple of games, I mentioned how much choices you know, really made the gameplay exciting. Nothing does it better than FTL. You're a spaceship, and you can move your dudes around to the different like parts of your ship, and they complete different tasks, and you get into fights. But it really is Oregon Trail in space. Oregon Trail, where you're running from a rebel fleet, Battlestar Galactica style, that's trying to kill you. But the thing is, you have a goal, and your goal is to get to the end of the galaxy to fight this one boss ship that's so much harder than anything else in the game. It's like this impossible task that everything is building up to. Everything every person you hire, everything you buy on a shop, everything is feeding into, am I going to be able to beat this boss? You remember the intro to Mass Effect 2, or that TV spot where Commander Shepard's listening to that distress call, and they're like, help, 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 and he shuts it off, and it's like, many decisions lie ahead, none of them easy. Well, we all know how that actually turned out. But that moment is what FTL is all about, where you're constantly turning down people who need help, knowing that they might be able to help you, but realizing that you just can't take that chance. That's what FTL is all about. Whether you're gonna take your engineer out of the weapons bay to go repair some hull damage, or you're gonna vent your oxygen all out into space to try to kill some people who are boarding your ship, knowing that you might not have enough time or oxygen for your own dudes to breathe. You have to make these life and death decisions constantly if you want to get to the end of the game. And like Oregon Trail style, you're coming across these events, and they're randomized. Like you might come across an escape pod not knowing what's inside, and if you open it, you could get a guy who joins your team, helping you succeed, or it could be a guy who instantly alien who instantly kills one of your teammates, and it makes every decision like a hold your breath experience, and that's what I love about it. It's incredible. I love how addictive the game is. You can unlock all kinds of ships that play like dramatically different than the way you've played it before. I feel like I could play this game forever, and those decisions are always going to be exciting. That's why FTL is my favorite game of the year. All right, that's it. Those are the 10 best games of the year. I'm right, you're wrong. We're done. Enjoy 2013. I'm gonna go play some Anarchy Reigns.